Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric, and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be reviewing Spiral, which may or may not be from the Book of Saw. That's a topic of discussion on the table tonight. First up, joining me back in not New York City, John. I've already decided I'm not going to remember it anymore because it's useless at this point. Please welcome the business manager of Bloody Good Horror, John Schnars, to the show.
Eric, what is the Book of Saw? That's a question I think we're going to need to answer.
My guess
was there a book referenced in the other movies?
It's the inspection or the instruction manual that comes with the saw.
I'm going to have to guess few words, lots of pictures. Just a thought.
I was trying to name a book from the Bible to be like, oh, it comes after. And then I was like, Job, is that one?
Next up on the show, bringing the biblical humor all the way from Richmond, Virginia. Please welcome Caitlin to the show.
Hello. I'm happy that Schnars is close to me geographically still. I'll always like Maryland Schnars.
For now.
Maryland.
We'll always have Maryland.
We'll always have Maryland.
We'll always have Annapolis.
It's like that Billy Crystal movie, Forget Paris. Only it's Maryland and crabs.
Is that a Billy Crystal?
It is. It's terrible. Don't make me talk about it. I'm sorry about that.
I'll take you up on that.
Next up on the show from Indiana, please welcome Casey.
Hello.
And last up tonight, first time guest on BGH. We told you new people are coming on. I do what I say, Schnars. This is what's happening. Please welcome from the Zombie Girls podcast, Rachel, to the show. Rachel, I don't know where you're coming from because I didn't ask.
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. Very nervous. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yes.
So, essentially.
West Coast.
Yeah. West Coast represent.
You might be I'm trying to think if we ever had somebody that far on the West Coast on the show. I'm not sure.
The furthest away, from Eric anyone else has ever been on the show.
That's true.
Those
I mean, I'm literally
bragging rights right there.
I'm like 40 minutes from the Atlantic Ocean right now. So we're going coast to coast tonight, people.
There you go.
It's pretty exciting. We're here tonight to talk about Spiral. So let's do it. Let's get into it.
This is it, Senator. Your big break in TV. Stop the prime time. Main feature.
And we're back. I went on an odyssey today, John. I
can't wait to hear about this one.
I looked up the Spiral Wikipedia.
Oh.
Yeah. So the story behind this movie is that there has been different iterations of Saw. Like basically, people that were involved in some of the other Saw sequels, I think in particular Jigsaw, were working on a new version of have been working on a new version of the movie for a little while now.
You mean what's his name? Tobin Bell?
No. I mean, like the writer, the people who wrote Jigsaw. The people who wrote the movie Jigsaw were developing a new Saw movie, and there were different iterations, some of which were going to straight up bring back Tobin Bell newsflash. I don't care what happened in this movie. That's what you should have done. But anyway.
I thought you said it Jake Saw as like that was somebody's name.
Jake Saw. He's the namesake of this series.
So this movie has the same writers as Jigsaw.
Well, yeah, so here's what happened. So in parallel, Chris Rock was like, I want to make horror movies. This is what I do now. And he ran into at like a party, or this is in the Wikipedia. He like ran into somebody from Lionsgate at a party, pitched them this idea. So they're like, okay, you have a name. We're going to work with you. So they then basically teamed him up with writers involved in the Saw franchise to like pitch stuff to Chris Rock. And then they sort of just went back and forth, taking pieces of scripts. Like this thing is just like, it has been many different things at different times. And even in this iteration,
that explains a lot.
Even in this iteration, there were discussions had about involving, even if wasn't going to be alive, there were discussions had about giving more credence to like the Jigsaw character. They ultimately decided they wanted to make it kind of as much of a separate like spinoff as possible. But it had a kind of fascinating life before it became this movie.
I do remember someone had explained this maybe on this show even as like the Chris Rock Saw movie, like that I did know that, or at least had like seen that maybe written that way.
Yeah.
But that's actually super helpful. And to Casey's point, explains like a lot about what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, the major question that you come away from this movie is like, what the fuck is Chris Rock doing? But
Here's what I took
uh,
away from it, honestly, and it's just a fascinating Hollywood thing, I guess. Like, you know, presumably these dudes who written some of these Saw sequels are like into it. They enjoy it. I'm sure it's really good money. They had this whole project going on, and then it was suddenly like, hey, Chris Rock is your boss now, so convince him of what's happening. Just kind of fascinating. It sounds like, you know, how much things changed course at some point. The moral of that story is, John, that I can read too.
the moral is you've heard of Wikipedia.
Not just you're not the only one who can read on this here podcast, John.
Fair.
With that said, John, please bring us the word of the day.
Eric, today's word, whirl. That is WHORL.
Ooh.
Whirl. So whirl, the generic definition, a pattern of spirals or concentric circles. So, but most commonly, and like I'll be honest with you, I was not 100% clear that whirl was actually a word as separate from whirl with an I. But here we are. Apparently, this one is used more frequently in sort of biology circles. So in zoology, each of the turns or convolutions in a shell of a gastropod or ammonoid mollusk.
A gastropod.
So
a
if you're like
gastropod
this-
is like a really pretentious chef, I think, right?
It would actually be the podcast of.
That's a really specific Food
pretentious
Network joke.
chef.
I think Caitlin got me.
No. And then in botany is plant stuff, Eric. A set of
you.
leaves, flowers, or branches springing from the stem at the same level, encircling it. So basically, if you want to impress your friends and you see like circly, swirly stuff happening in nature, the word is whirl.
I love it.
So,
Thanks, John.
yeah, it comes to us from the English word whirl with an I.
Like a whirly bird.
Whirl. I think they just were pronouncing it weirdly, and then people started writing it. I don't know, but yeah.
Do they have those, John, in places that are not the Northeast? Whirly, you know, the trees that like those things come down and they do that?
Yes.
I
think
always
it's
called
like-
them helicopters.
Yes,
Yeah.
helicopters. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the other.
There's a Pokemon called Poliwhirl. That's the
There
other.
is. That's where my mind went. He has
I
it
was-
on his tummy.
Yeah, he does. He does. Yeah.
Love it. Pokemon talk. John, tell me about Spiral from the Book of Saw, or whatever the fuck this movie's called.
What is there to tell, really? So I mean, you covered some of the important background. We should also mention directed by Darren Lynn Bousman,
Mhm.
who, I mean, over the lifetime of Bloody Good Horror, I have probably described as one of my least favorite directors of all time. I was trying to click on.
He's
to
got
just-
a style.
He did. I'm gonna get it wrong. I think he did like 3 of the other Saw movies.
He did
so-
multiple Saw sequels. He also did that Repo, a genetic opera, was like a big thing.
Yeah, he did that movie 11/11/11, I think,
Yes,
too.
yeah.
Which is up there. Oh, he did the second Saw actually. So okay. Yeah, I mean, so Darren Lynn Bousman, as we discussed, written by Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger, who were the writers on Jigsaw. They've written actually a bunch of stuff, horror-y things that we've seen
Goldfinger,
and
hell of a last
discussed.
name.
Yeah. But yeah, so as we were discussing, Chris Rock is the central character. The film opens with a pretty, I don't know, memorable, iconic, whatever you want to call it, Jigsaw setup. So you've got
Dude,
this
that,
police officer.
that first kill is fucking awesome.
It's a crooked cop. I will say describe this one in detail. I will not describe any of the others in detail.
Please,
But it's pretty important, right?
John,
Because like
John, do it
it's
slow.
do it slow. But it is important because it sets up sort of like where the rest of the film's going. So you've got this. He's a crooked cop who has put a bunch of people in jail by lying on the stand. And he is captured at like a carnival. He like chases someone basically down into the sewers, and then I'm just gonna say Jigsaw. I know it's not Jigsaw. I know it's a different person, but like,
Does he have a name? Is he like the
Mr.
spiral?
Snuggles.
Miss-
yeah,
well, that's
Mr.
what.
Snuggles.
No, isn't that what the?
Pigman.
No, isn't the puppet called Mr. Snuggles or something though?
Oh, you mean you the actual guy?
Yeah, what's the guy called? Did they give him?
Spoilers,
Did they? Get,
Shank? Hank?
No, I mean, like, did he have a nickname? I guess is what I mean.
Like
Or-
instead of like
oh, no.
Billy. Billy was the
Thank you.
little tricycle one, right?
Yeah.
I just mean like
Mr.
Toby.
Snuggles
Like
You
the
say
pig.
so.
John, just say killer.
Mr. Snuggles is the name of the pig.
Just say
Yeah.
killer.
How
John.
did you guys follow that movie franchise so much that you picked up on that?
I don't know. It's been a dark
So
time
I
this
only.
year.
All right. So in any event, he gets trapped down there. The killer captures him, and the setup is that his tongue is in a vice. He is suspended from the ceiling of the subway train line, like on the track. The train is coming, and the only way he cannot get killed by the train is to, I guess, bite off his own tongue.
No, he said jump and it'll like rip it out.
Oh yeah, right. His body weight, he could kick he was standing on like a rickety chair, and he could kick the chair out. His body weight would rip the tongue out, and then he'd get away. Yeah, I mean it's really pretty gruesome. Spoiler alert: he does not do that, and he gets mangled by this train. And so, but that basically teases. So then we sort of smash cut to Chris Rock. We can come back to it, I think, because like how they introduce Chris Rock and this like setup of him being like undercover but not undercover is like
His loose 5-minute stand-up bit.
crazy. It was so weird.
Yeah, the weird undercover scene followed by 5 straight minutes of him bebopping and scatting all over the place.
Like just yeah. It's so. But in any event, he's a cop. He's a detective in Metro Police Department. Like this was the other thing I wanted to talk about at some point.
City.
They avoid ever naming the city. There is
Yeah.
one. There's 2 different.
I think that's a Saw thing.
Mexico.
Like Saw is kind of in like the every city.
Yeah.
Well, one of the overhead shots was Philadelphia. I mean, I grew up outside
Oh,
Philadelphia. I
interesting.
know what Philadelphia. Yeah, it was 100% Philadelphia. But the rest, there was another one that wasn't. In any event,
Whatever it is,
he's a-
it's a city where every building is interior is entirely made of exposed brick.
Yes, and like every factory is completely just
Yeah.
defunct and rotting. Is like there is like literally infinite numbers of places to set up saw traps.
I used to say that
I think
about
it
the
was
Saw,
called Warehouseton.
like the Saw series. At some point, wouldn't anybody who owns an abandoned factory just throw some cameras up in there, like just in case?
just to be safe. Yeah, just to know. You never know. All right, so let me try to get through because the setup is like actually pretty convoluted. So Chris Rock, he's a detective in Metro.
We haven't
His
gotten through the
father-
first scene yet.
His father was Samuel L. Jackson. Samuel L. Jackson was the chief of police. Now he's just like retired and around. So basically the Jigsaw, the killer, the Jigsaw acolyte, the person who has read the Book of Saw and now committing spiral crimes or whatever we call them.
Laurel
It's-
crimes.
Laurel.
Laurel.
Good use. That person is going only after the cops, and so it's sort of like slowly, and I mean not all that slowly, revealed that it's like a super crooked department. All these cops have done like their own nasty shit. There's like a cop who shot someone. There's the cop who lied on the stand. There's the other cop who not just shot someone, but like at like a traffic stop, just straight up murdered a person like on camera. I mean, there's like all kinds of crazy stuff. So, but that's sort of the setup. And so you have Chris Rock who's trying to he catches the case, the first subway case, and so he basically advocates to be the lead on this, new Jigsaw thing, but it's like targeting the cops. So there's like all kinds of craziness, and they all are kind of lashing out at each other. There's like other shit that's going on that we could get into, but I mean, like that's sort of the baseline, I think.
That brings up interesting questions plot-wise for me. That review there,
Sure.
like on how he caught the case or if he was targeted.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it. Rachel, what did
Yes.
you think? And you were telling us pre-show you've been going on like a Saw Odyssey
Yeah.
lately.
So I had
you were self-abusing. You were self-harming.
I mean, we all have our kinks. No, I'd never seen these movies. I had avoided them forever. I'm known on my podcast as the wimp of the show, so I'd never seen a single Saw. But a friend of mine, they're his favorite movies, and when I was drunk, he talked me into watching all of them in preparation for this movie. So I spent about a month in Jigsaw's lair, watched them all, and by the time I got to this one, I was like, what a breath of fresh. Look at this. Straightforward plot. Yeah. So I do feel like My take on this, like, I have two sort of opinions of it. On, like, if you just look at it in the larger scope of horror movies, it's not very good. But if you compare it, like, in the context of the Saw-averse, this is one of the better ones. Maybe the best.
Oh,
hold
bold.
on. All right. Well,
I mean,
come back to that, but like,
my favorite part about this, John now has to wait.
Hell,
John has
I'm
to wait like
dying.
John has to wait like 5 minutes now to respond to that, which I love. Thank you, Rachel. Casey, what do you think?
So I didn't hate this movie altogether, but I would argue that it's not necessarily fully a Saw movie either. This movie, to me, kind of switched halfway through to like a detective procedural show, and I'm okay with that. I enjoy those shows from time to time. Wasn't what I was expecting. I wanted to see a lot more traps and a lot more weight to the traps than we did, but it kind of felt like everything was just kind of thrown in, like, ooh, crazy. And then they stepped back a bit, and they also didn't handle the big reveal at the end. And I won't spoil the reveal at the end, but there was always, to me, it felt like in the Saw movies, they at least tried to build up to a big kind of emotional turn. And when this happened, and this time around for Spiral, they just kind of turned the corner and said, here they are. And there wasn't really a whole lot of setup. So it kind of took the weight out of it. Other than that, though, I mean, I kind of enjoyed Chris Rock. I didn't think he was terrible.
Caitlin.
Well, John hinted at Chris Rock entering the movie in a very bizarre way. Like, it's like he's working on his next, like, 5 minutes of stand-up and just workshopping it.
Crazy.
It's
He
very
wants
bizarre.
everything, okay? He wants everything.
And it is
It's like-
completely out of sync with the tone of the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
It is, and I feel like they were like, okay, Chris Rock is in this movie, so we need to like at least get viewer buy-in at the beginning. So that felt like a completely different movie. I feel like it could have used more Saw traps. I mean, they were good, and we can get into them, but it felt, and everyone sort of alluded to this, but it gets a little bit sort of like, what is it in Law and Order when it's like IAB, the Internal Affairs Bureau, comes in? Like, it's very much that. Like, it feels like an episode of Law and Order where there's a lot of like inter-departmental drama, which isn't bad. I mean, it was an interesting story, but it just didn't feel like a classic Saw movie. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention the voice, because we used to get the voice that was like, hello, I'd like to play a game. And this one is like, hello, Eric, you are a terrible cop.
I saw that.
It's like Kermit.
I saw that. It does sound like Kermit a little bit. I'm kind of.
you're good impression.
You know what, Caitlin? I don't.
I'll bring you in for the next
I don't mind it. I don't mind the voice, but I hear you. It's pretty jarring difference. They initially had, according to my reading I did, John, they had thought about just making it the same voice, but they were afraid it would confuse people, and they would immediately start thinking that like Jigsaw was back or something.
Yeah, Tobin Bell was still on.
Yeah.
Well, the point being, Mary cannot stop doing the voice, and she's very good at it, and it's just a constant stream of Kermit Jigsaw voice.
Yeah.
Well, it's
a lot
got it's got a little bit of like it's so that it says that it's I guess I don't know that I would have guessed this, but that it's like clipped together from snippets of a voice. It sounds like an AI kind of putting together speech, which can be creepy, but
does.
it's the tone of the voice that's kind of weird.
It's very high compared
it's
to
high,
like
yeah.
the like sort of graveliness of the old Saw. But and then I will say, without getting into spoilers, this movie is made for people like me, because a lot of you saw the twist coming, and I must have been like on my phone for a lot of this, and I was like,
Oh, I had no idea.
like
Yeah.
I did not see
Yeah.
it coming, because
I did not put it together. I'll just put
Okay.
that on the table. I did not. In retrospect, it is very, very obvious, I think. But
Well, and they
I-
show
you
you
know.
with a flashback from like 20 minutes ago in the movie to make you feel like
We got to talk about the goddamn flashbacks. It's
the number
obscene.
of times. All right, so can I go? Can I go really quick?
I
And when I
really
say really
like.
quick,
I
like-
really enjoy the power of you having to ask me that. Yes, John, you may
I'm
go.
gonna go for like 5 minutes. No, I'll try not to. So Rachel's. The question of where this fits in the Saw spectrum is actually like a really important. The thing I will say, because I did not see the Jigsaw film, so the last one I saw was
The
Saw
Jigsaw was a
3D.
prequel.
Ooh.
The
Oh,
Jigsaw,
it was a prequel?
I believe Jigsaw's like a twist prequel, where at the end you find out that the killer doing all this stuff was actually Jigsaw. Like it's his first. You're seeing his first Saw.
So
Jigsaw.
I told you, I think I said over email, I read the Wikipedia for Jigsaw. I have no goddamn idea what happens in that movie.
So
Like,
it doesn't. So it
is
doesn't matter. It
incomprehensible.
doesn't matter. Just establish. It's just a prequel. But
In
the
any event,
the last like canon one is the one where they bring like Carrie Elwes back at the end, and now Carrie Elwes is also a disciple of Saw Man.
I thought Saw 3D was the last one, wasn't
I
it?
think that's it.
Jigsaw is after 3D.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well,
in
yeah,
the
yeah. Jigsaw.
timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my point was just I haven't seen one since Saw 3D, which what's that, like 6 years ago? I feel like it's like a pretty long time.
Yeah.
And there was an element of like slipping into a warm bath for me with the like subway kill, because
Like in a good way. You're not in like a
Yeah,
your
yeah.
life is too hard kind of way. You're
the
gonna
movies are so fucking outrageous. Like they're so, and I had forgotten. I like just want to hear Rachel talk about some of those like 4, 5, 6 at some point, because there's like certain elements that were when you're watching like number 6 and you've seen, you're just it's like it's so incomprehensible even while it's happening, but it's also like I've committed to seeing
Mhm.
this to this point, so it's like yeah, like what's his name, Costas Mandalore was like the main character in like 3 of them. I mean, he is like not like a actor who gets a lot of work,
No,
so
no.
in any event, there was an element where I was like, oh, we're back here, like here we are. The flashbacks, Eric, because you there is a moment in the first like 15
It's
minutes
every
of this movie,
90 seconds.
it flashes back to something that was revealed to us 5 minutes earlier. And you're just like,
I mean,
what is happening?
As Chris Rock is looking off in the distance, like putting it together, like, oh.
Yeah, like, am I having a stroke? Like they need to show me this again. So
It never lets up. It's not just once. It is the entire
No,
film. There's a
there's-
flashback every few minutes. It's crazy.
But what's interesting is like in those what's interesting, it's not that interesting. Like in some of the, in like Saw 5 and 6, they're flashing back to like Saw 3. I feel like there was like all, and there were times in those movies where I'm like, I don't even know what this flashback is. Like what the fuck is happening? Here it was the opposite. It was like this thing just happened 5 minutes ago and now you're showing it to me again. But I still like appreciated that it was like the gimmick or the I don't know, that like creative element of the flashback. They just like felt like it needed to be there. I don't know. So the movie's terrible.
You,
Like
you enjoyed their
it's
commitment
really-
to the bit, is what you're saying.
It's the like gimmicks of it. No, I mean I found this to be like almost unwatchably bad. Probably until the third act. I will give credit to the
See,
fact that
yeah.
I did not see the twist, or I didn't. Casey, you said that you were sort of like surprised, like that you felt like they like surprised you with the reveal almost, like you didn't feel like they built up to it kind of in the right way. You're on mute there. That's why I'm in.
Wait to it is what
Yeah.
I say.
Well, I similarly like almost wasn't ready for them to do the reveal, and so when it happened, I was like, oh, there it is. Now it's being revealed. So like there was something weird about it, but like when it happens, it fit. Like I thought the script was like literally I couldn't believe they had shot a script this bad for like a large part of the movie, and then at the end, I was like, all right, like tip of the cap, like this all came together, and it doesn't excuse a lot of the dialogue, a lot of the way Chris Rock acts, which I did not think was worth his time, really. I mean, if this is what he wants to be doing, like God bless, but I don't know. So yeah, it's
I
not
wonder if it's
good.
one of those
What else do
situations.
you expect him to be doing?
Well, but like I wonder if it's a situation where he wants to do like serious stuff and no one's giving it to him, so he's like, screw it, I'm just gonna produce my own movie and give myself the role.
I mean,
Listen, if I had Chris Rock money, I would be like,
Of course.
I'm
Yeah,
making
why
a Saw
not?
movie.
Of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
right?
we talked about at some point in the past, like he did the last season of Fargo, which I thought was like it was like not Fargo people didn't love it as much, but I thought it was good, and I thought he was solid in it.
He's-
So I mean, whatever.
yeah.
He can do this
I
kind of
wouldn't
work.
call
I'm not
him
saying-
good here so much. He says words okay. He does not react to other people in a convincing manner. Like that's kind of my biggest beef with his acting style. He'll make faces that just do not fit what he's trying to like convey at that moment. John, I'm like kind of in between like you and Rachel, which is interesting. Like I appreciate the attempt to like go back to basics, so to speak. And I dig the gritty procedural vibe that they have going on here. I think that first kill, dude, when he simultaneously gets his tongue ripped out and gets exploded by a train is amazing. It's unfortunately, I think, the high point of the movie. It happens in the first 5 minutes.
His body literally explodes too. It's I don't
Yeah.
know if that's sort of like
Here's the
physics
thing is,
would
like,
make that happen, but
I enjoyed this movie a decent amount, but I'm with you, John. It is not just bad, it's like amateurish in a lot of ways, which is kind of crazy. One thing I'll point to is the casting is god awful, and it's not just Chris Rock. This movie has what I call like actor cop syndrome, where like this is not a precinct. This is like, I guess, the precinct of cops where they're actually all actors, because there is not a convincing cop in this entire movie. They're like, nobody's convincing, which kind of takes you out of it. And
well, they're all very evil too. Like
well,
as cops,
this
they're
is a
like,
thing. This is a thing that to me
scars
is
on their faces.
this is a thing that to me is kind of
The
an
Department of Mustache Twirling. Yeah.
this is a thing to me that is very present in all the Saw movies, which is that they spend so much time on the set design and the like cinematography on the like traps that anything out in the real world feels so fake. It's like every wall looks like you could push it over. Every scene looks like a fake place. Like this guy's apartment with this brick all around, like it just looks like two walls that they aimed the camera at and there's nothing, you know what I mean? Like nothing holds up to any kind of like visual scrutiny, and it makes it all feel like very, that combined with this very terrible acting makes everything feel like kind of paper thin. And at some point in the movie, it's really interesting, John, to hear you talk about the slipping into a warm bath thing, because you're dead on. Like, I was talking today about how much I used to enjoy the yearly Saw movies as a Halloween theater ritual. And what those sequels trafficked in, as bad as they were, is ridiculousness. Like, they were so stupid. And part of it is obviously like just fun to talk about on the show. To me, this movie misses the mark, but like I kind of at the same time, I admire it for trying to take this back to something simpler and more effective. But by 3/4 of the way through, I was like, I think I just want stupid escape room with a bunch of people getting chopped up. Like, I don't think I want this serious take on this, because they can't really do this very well either.
There's only three traps, really?
Here's the thing. Because Chris Rock was involved, I expected a higher level of production and writing on this movie. But now that I'm especially reading the lineage of it, I think they made a mistake by just having Chris Rock involved, but also having the rest of the Saw crew involved. I'm sorry, but if you wanted to make this better, and you wanted Chris Rock do his thing, just let him do his thing and go find his own production people. I don't know. Because to me, it feels of a quality with the last couple sequels, which were pretty bad. It's just that the story is a lot easier to follow. Like, it's a lot less convoluted, I think.
When was the last time you guys all watched one of the Saw sequels? How long has it been?
When I saw Jigsaw, so however long ago
Jigsaw.
that was. Yeah.
I rewatched the first one not too long ago.
I mean, they're bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I tell you the degree of improvement in production value from this one in 3D, it is like a whole new level.
Really?
As bad as this looks, go
Interesting.
back and watch 3D.
For sure, yeah.
Is,
I mean, I don't have a lot of current day perspective on it, for sure.
yeah. I mean, listen, I cannot defend this movie against the things you're saying, but I will say a lot of the things that you're like, this is terrible about this movie is very, very in keeping.
But I also will leave room though. But what I'll also do is I can leave room for enjoying a bad movie. And I think there's a lot of that stuff here.
You were kind of my only hope on this one. Because sometimes you and I have trash crossover, and I'm like, Eric,
no, I feel it. I think especially if you dig the Saw movies, this is kind of an interesting interpretation. It's different, which is neat about it.
It did hit some of the beats for me. So I'm a big fan of the theme, the song Hello Zepp. And when Chris Rock this isn't really a spoiler, but there's a scene where he's got the saw in his hand and he's handcuffed, and it's it very much harkens back to the first one, and it's dun dun dun, and I'm like I did get the sort of like Shara said, warm bath, oh, this feels so good. And the traps were, I did have some nice moments, and not the main twist, but the little extra twist at the end. I was like, oh, they got me, and that was pretty fun.
Caitlin's like, you scamps.
I forgot. So I think there were 3 traps plus the fine. So there's 4 if you count the last one. That scene where he has the saw and the other guy is why is the glass shooting? Like the machine, they basically, there's like several shots trying to like establish that there's this bottle machine that crushes the bottles, but then it's shooting the glass. Like
That-
A
those,
wood
dude,
chipper
okay.
for glass.
but those machines exist in real life. They never show you
Yeah,
the
they're-
full machine at
They're
once.
they're glass shrapnel machines. They're made to shoot
Yeah.
shrapnel at people.
Yeah.
John. That's,
Everyone knows
I'm just
that.
making
Are you that rich that you've
I
never
was-
seen glass break, John?
that- John, are you familiar with recycling?
I guess all right, sorry. The criticism I'm
No,
trying
no,
to
that
make
was
is
by
I think
far the stupidest trap.
but the visual, like the sort of the way that it is structured cinematically, the editing of it, I couldn't conceptualize like what was even happening other than like
Listen.
some bottles are falling and then glass is shooting out of a hole.
This movie, and I actually think this movie is pretty badly edited, and that's not the only scene that I think it causes some like spatial confusion in.
Yeah.
Mm. Mhm.
But like with the traps themselves, you said, John, there's only like 4 traps in this. I always came away from these movies in the past that you went to a Saw movie to see the traps. I mean, we watched like a 10-minute scene with Chester Bennington super glued to a car seat, right? In one of those movies.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We didn't get that anywhere here. And usually they kind of linger on those traps a little bit, like to your point, John, and they kind of spell those out of what's going on because they're usually kind of a counter comment to something that person's done or something,
Yeah.
that kind of weighs in on that.
Well, they were trying to do. They were like when
A
they
little
did
bit.
it, they did it.
The
here.
later
Well, the
sequels
tongues
too. So
get
that
ripped out,
the starting really with the second one, I think Rachel, you can help fill in my memory gaps on this one, but
Yeah.
they started with like because in the second one everyone's trapped in that house like together.
Mhm.
I think
Mhm.
like part of what I miss here is that vibe, and they leaned into this hard in the later sequels where it was almost like an escape room where there was a bunch of people who had to kind of move through a maze, and like then they would all just be in
Yeah.
traps and stuff.
I
So-
mean, 3D had the room that was just 100 lawnmowers for 3 seconds.
Right, like there was
That's the budget.
does any like I guess my question is did anybody else feel like the traps in this movie like the setups got a little repetitive?
No, well, so Eric, here's the thing I would say that's actually very related. And so I think Casey, you brought up the fact that this actually is mostly a police procedural film, like that. And that was definitely like an intentional choice. The thing that and again, Rachel, keep me honest, but like the other films have that element, right? Like Costas Mandylor is the cop, and
Yeah.
but
I mean,
they
the
are in.
first 3 are police procedurals. That's what the first 3 are.
But to Eric's point, they are interspliced with you having more of a relationship with the victims. So you like meet them, you see them interact with each other. Even the first one, again, it's been like literally decades since I've seen the first one, or at least 1 decade.
30 years.
I saw before it was big. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like that part is completely out the window here.
Yeah.
What's weird is because the victims are the cops. So
Mhm.
like you're getting the police procedural and like theoretically getting to know the victims that way, but they're so cartoonishly evil. And
Yeah.
cops in a setting like this, especially when you know they're crooked, like they're like coded as bad. So
Yeah.
whereas like in the other films, like even the bad people that are getting killed by Jigsaw are like they've got a kid or like whatever, like there's
Yeah,
I
they
don't know.
kind of blindsided you each time. They gave you something to like about them and whatnot.
Well, it's
Here
like-
we get kind of a plot drop.
Would you say
Well, it's
it
like
was
with
Cam
Amanda.
Fisker?
Amanda is like someone struggling with addiction, and like he's trying in his perverted and terrible way to, in his mind, help her. And then these are very much punishments, which is fine. I mean, they're all bad people, but like John said, I don't have any. Like I'm like, yeah, fill her up with wax. Like she sucks, like.
oh, I totally forgot about. Sorry,
Caitlin.
I'm forgetting whole traps now. So
Oh
there
my
was the
goodness. Caitlin.
That was another example of
Dude,
sort
I
of, like,
love
wonky editing.
dumbest moment in the movie. He's trying to peel the wax off like she's gonna be okay, and there's legit like hamburger underneath it, like where her face used to be.
I like that. Well, that's
He's
what
like, "Are
was
you
weird
okay?
because-
Breathe!" Like, ugh. And it's just like it's literally
It's gonna
looks
be
like
okay. It's
it just looks like they
peeling
went
a
to the-
face mask.
it looks like they went to the butcher and just got raw meat that they stuffed underneath
Yeah.
it.
It was. I don't know if this was like a conscious aesthetic choice by Bousman or not, but like, because we talked a little bit, they don't fetishize the traps quite as much. but the movie is still just as gory. Like there are some really, from that first kill, the dude's fingers getting ripped out. Like I was like,
Yeah, that one hurt to watch. I was down with that one. It's like, oh, geez.
but it's more. It's like in some ways, it's not that it's more visceral because it's visceral in those other Saw movies too. But you don't get the like trap porn. It's like it kind of cuts right to the, the gore part.
But yeah, there's no setup for him, and so there's no emotional weight to him. They just kind of like, boom, here's a trap, and then they give you a plot dump and say, this is why this guy is bad if you didn't pick it up from the scars on his face, and then and move on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, there isn't the B plot, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I hadn't really thought about it. I was just like, yeah, a cab. I'm in.
I could totally, honestly, Rachel, though, see, like, you could enjoy this movie. Like, I think that part of what we do is not you. I mean, a person could, but like, I think I love movies like this because while I'm watching it, and I have long ago lost the ability to watch a movie just from the point of view of like, I'm a moviegoer. Like I'm always just thinking of the show. Like what kind of show is this gonna be? And it's like, oh, this is dumb, and it's gonna be fun to make fun of it on the show. But like, I think it's dumb fun for a lot of it. I do think like for me, the trap repetitiveness is what then started to bum me out as it went on. Because I kind of like Caitlin. I think you said Caitlin, it picked up for you in the third act. The third act was a point that I was at which like, I'm cool. I don't need to see where this goes. Like I probably wouldn't finish this if I was not watching it for the show.
It did draw me in emotionally. Like I was just checking my notes to make sure I hit all the points, and I was like, oh no, like the father son. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
It did. I don't know. Like maybe,
I'm gonna be honest with you, Caitlin.
I'm exactly the audience they want. They're like, is she dumb? Is she gonna see it coming? No. Is she gonna be sad? Like,
the father son thing in this movie did absolutely nothing for me because I do not buy Sam Jackson in any role he's ever been in.
Oh come on,
Pulp
that's
Fiction.
too strong.
He's good in Pulp Fiction. How's that?
I mean, he's been in a lot of stuff. I'm sure.
I believe he did not want the snakes on the train. I believe. But I don't know. Maybe I'm dumb too.
Well, it's like so
because I can't say that I ever actually watched the trailer.
Here's
so when
part
Samuel
of
Jackson showed up, I was kind of like, whoa.
This is like a
I don't
cop.
know if he was in the trailer, but he was definitely on the poster. They do.
This is like a cop movie written by a person who decided they were not interested in learning anything about how actual cops work. Like it is just like their best guesses about what would happen. Like one of the silliest scenes is when Chris Rock gets shot. And like for some reason, every cop in the precinct is hanging around right after this happens. And then Sam Jackson showed up. He's like, "Why didn't you help my son?" And he just like punches somebody in the face. I'm like, are we having like our daily meeting here at this shooting scene? Like, why is every cop in the precinct here?
All of it's all of the cops who are still there. Like 10 years later.
The retired one.
Yeah.
It's just funny. Like it's just a lot of stuff like that that's very convenient for the plot, but feels super lazy.
Well, it's
the biggest fault for that for me. Sorry, I'm just gonna charge on ahead here. Was Samuel Jackson disappeared for like 20 minutes of this movie?
Yeah,
they had a loose attempt at trying to make him a red herring, but no, he just kind of disappears and shows up at the end.
Well, and they they explain where he went, but it definitely felt more like they only had him for 2 days and we're gonna maximize like what we get out of him. Yeah, I mean, that's like the other. I mean, one of the other major issues. There's just the plot is too complicated. Like, there's actually like, I mean, I guess the other Saw movies are really insanely complicated too.
This one is it goes down so smooth compared to the later.
Yeah, but like, I mean, look, but I think maybe that's a commentary on all the Saw films of like that like, it's just there's too many kind of things that have to get connected. You know, it's like you have to, Casey mentioned, like each cop that gets into a trap, they have to like tell their backstory, but then they have to like explain the whole backstory. The department is crooked and like it all comes together. And it's like,
they show this particular flashback to this crooked cop situation like 17 times throughout this movie. And we see, I mean, I understand that as a trope where each time maybe they're giving you a little more. But a lot of times they're just showing you the same piece including after the reveal, they show it to you again.
We saw that old guy say, fuck him when Chris Rock called for backup that one time in the past, like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. I could have used more Chris Rock in a backwards baseball hat flashback.
Yes.
They're
It was very
That's
like,
how you knew
I
he was
need more
younger.
mustache context for Samuel L. Jackson, please.
it was very like, hey kids.
Can we throw down the spoiler alert?
Sure.
Because like that
I think
flash-
Rachel spoiled the movie in the first 90
I
seconds,
know.
so I think we're
I'm
good,
so
John.
sorry. No,
Really?
You're fine.
Oh,
I think
I-
I did.
it went over my head. The flashback I think you're referring to, Eric, and this is like just bad filmmaking, independent of so like it always drives me nuts when they're like showing. So when you see the flashback for the first time, it's sort of you're like supposed to think, I guess, that Chris Rock's remembering it, but the scene that he's remembering, he didn't see. So it's like
Mm,
it's actually more of like an omniscient
that's
presentation
interesting. Wow.
of that scene.
Just
And
blew
so,
my mind.
well, but it's just cheating, right? Because like they
Hmm.
in an omniscient narrator universe, like they could just tell you all of it up front. Like that, what they reveal at the end.
Right.
is
It's
that-
not a character who doesn't have information and is just remembering. Yeah. That's
exactly. It's
Clearly, Ghost of Jigsaw Cam. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
but like then they do I can't remember how they do. I think it's just a cut. I don't think it's like a zoom or anything, but it's like turns out there was someone behind the guy who was shot, like standing. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Like Chris Rock, but then it was unclear. I guess Chris Rock interacted with him at the time. That
He
was like,
said he
he
put
said,
his finger up to his mouth and said, "Shh."
oh yeah. Okay, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the cops will just start killing kids around here, don't they? It's like,
But that brings me back to the question from the beginning of the show after your plot drop there, John. Was Chris Rock targeted by Max Minghell's character, or did he just happen to be the first one to show up at the subway and got the case, and so he's the one that got the shit shipped to him?
Well, he was
I-
like, "Do you have any idea how hard it was for me to be your part? Like, get to be assigned to this precinct?" So
yeah.
Yeah.
The idea was,
yeah.
I think
You
that
might
it was
say
all set up that
it
way.
would be impossible to do what he did, Caitlin. And the idea that a kid would have that much forethought is hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna grow up and be a cop. I'm gonna sign to his thing, and then I'm gonna be his partner, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna
I'm
convince
gonna
him
have a fake baby,
and then I'm
cry,
gonna
and
come
then
up with the world. And then I'm gonna come up with the world's most convoluted plan, and then I'm also gonna try to murder his father, which will definitely make him want to be on my side.
The other thing, so the other hilarious
I also cannot take this
plot
dude
problem.
seriously. He's so pretty and like clean looking. Like I can't take him seriously as a bad guy.
Well, so the other problem in all the Saw films, right, is like Tobin Bell. I think they explain how he gets all his money, but like
Right.
it would be really expensive to build all these traps.
John, not
and,
just
like,
expensive, but you need to be a fucking super genius engineer
engineer.
An engineer.
And so,
slash
like,
science
this
slash
guy-
murder scientist.
But Max Minghella or whatever, like he's also going through police academy. Like it's not.
Yeah.
He was like doing other shit, like because Tobin Bell, at least there was it. I just feel I can't remember. Rachel, again, but I feel like
I don't know how I became the Saw historian.
well, you just have like the most. You're like you're closest.
I
to
just
it.
remembered that one of the characters that comes into one of the mid-tier sequels is like his wife
Yeah.
becomes involved.
She,
Yeah,
she's in like multiple of them.
yeah,
I
yeah,
believe.
yeah.
Don't forget,
Yeah.
Max somewhere while going to police academy had to learn how to tattoo too.
Yeah, I'd though do that line. I took the hand and I tattooed. Like, shut up, dude. I wish they would have shown that.
That was the giveaway though. When
I
so this
I
was
took
the
this
thing in
hand into a
retrospect.
tattoo parlor.
Well, when that guy, when he gets killed, like when he gets killed, when that body shows up, that was sort of the giveaway because it was like he didn't do anything. We also didn't see the kill.
Yeah, you didn't
We
see the
didn't-
kill.
There's no backstory, plot dump. Like, so I was when that happened, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is super weird. And I thought it was just like laziness, and I wrote it off as bad filmmaking. And that's why when it came back, I was like, touche.
Well,
Aaron
for-
Bassman.
Colleen and I predicted this, called this pretty early on that it was going to be Max Minghella by the end, and there wasn't any really strong giveaways other than they set it up that obviously Chris Rock knew all these other people that were involved, all the other cops and everything, and he was the one outsider. That and Max Minghella's got like two emotions, and he's kind of a bastard on Handmaid's Tale, so it just kind of fit.
See, yeah, Elizabeth was telling me he's on Handmaid's Tale. I only know him from the Facebook movie,
Oh, I didn't know.
Oh yeah.
where he's a super
Well,
preppy like Harvard student. So like that's my only context for him.
that's everyone in that movie. No.
Really,
I
no
s-
one
I
else.
must have
No one
scrubbed
else
that from my
here.
mind.
No one else here has seen the Facebook movie.
Yeah,
I have not.
I have,
The
yeah.
Social Network.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it like 20 times, to be fair.
Oh, I've seen it one time when
It's
it
a good
came out.
movie.
Oh, sorry.
One thing that I was confused about is how this like 35-year-old supermodel became the chief of police or whatever in this scenario. Like, good for her, I guess. And they explain that she kind of climbs her way to the top through being crooked and shitty. But the whole time I was like, this just doesn't make sense. Like, I couldn't. I can buy into a lot of things, including Chris Rock in a baseball cap being like, "What's up, youth?" and being like, 20 or something. But I was like, this woman, there's no way. And then when they show her young, they're like, we gave her bangs.
It's funny because that captain was played by Marisol Nichols, who was recently in the Riverdale show as Veronica's mom, Veronica Lake's mom, or Veronica Lodge's mom. But you know what role she's most famous for? And it blew my mind when I first figured it out watching Riverdale. She was Audrey Griswold in Vegas Vacation.
Oh, that's funny.
Wow.
Yeah, my lord. She had, I mean, yeah, that was like teenage.
Oh yeah.
Jesus.
I was
this
cool with
movie-
watching her drown in wax. So
Yeah, that was
Poor
I
Audrey
liked the
Griswold.
face. I liked the face peel part. That I was kind of like, oh.
It was just funny. Because he's peeling it away in a way that suggests that he's hoping she's still alive.
Well,
Where it's just
he
like
gives her mouth to mouth.
it's like hamburger
There's-
helper.
Yeah.
It's just
that
disgusting.
when he gave her the mouth to mouth, I was like,
it's
but,
like
you know.
when like Paul Hollywood is pulling like a chocolate ganache off of something in Great British Baking Show. He's eating it so gingerly, like it's gonna be fine underneath.
He's like,
And I'm just like, no.
yeah. Gross. Super gross. That was one of the definitely more disgusting things in this movie. All right. Is that it?
I don't mean, do we want to talk about like you, I can't just watch movies and turn my brain off anymore. So I
Love
have
it.
a lot of notes about the shifting politics
Sure.
of the Saw
Yes, please.
franchise and how I think I'm kind of okay. So I appreciate one of the things I appreciated about this was that we moved away from the Jigsaw philosophy, I guess we could call it. And I know you were saying you wish that he was in this. I was actually relieved he wasn't, because then the movies just like twist into like an Ouroboros of ridiculousness. But also Jigsaw, I don't know that he plays in the same way that he would have in 2004.
Interesting.
Right.
So walk me
He
through
is
it.
the OG of grievance politics, right? Like
Mm.
he is this person who the system worked for forever. He is someone who, he was able to become like the murder engineer, right? He amassed enough wealth to have like 5,000 warehouse in Housington. And then when suddenly the system fails him, he goes on a murder spree and he's like punishing everyone else and like
Interesting.
doing it through cruelty, right?
Right.
So he is the emblematic of a lot of the like really fucked up politics that we're experiencing now. And so I think you had to lose him in this, and modernizing it by talking about some topical things like police corruption. And moving away from individual people that
Right. It's like turning
personally hurt you.
it's like turning the lens more on institutional corruption than
Yeah.
on just people who did some
Systemic.
bad stuff sometimes.
Well, yeah, this Jigsaw is outsider, right? Like
Yeah, I like
trying,
that.
yeah.
That's interesting.
So
But
I mean, I do think where it kind of pulls its punches, though, is by taking its two other characters of color and making them the big bad and their henchmen.
right.
So like it leans into ACAB a little bit, but it's like, oh, not Black Lives Matter though. Too far. Too far.
Well, it is like it's the sort of extra twist at the end, which made me really sad, is when Chris Rock. The idea is like, okay, he lets the dude escape so that he can save his dad, but when the wire is tripped, it looks like Sam Jackson's character is raising a gun and they shoot before asking any questions. Which, like in this scenario, it is what it is. But like I
he's like
appreciated that there was
suspended in the air. the whole
yeah,
thing.
he was like a marionette. Like I appreciated that there was an attempt at commentary there. And I don't know, it felt maybe like a little tacked on, but now that we're sort of walking through that, like, yeah, this is about more systemic
Mhm.
sort of corruption rather than just like one-off bad people doing bad things once or twice in their life.
Right.
Yeah. I think this movie does a really good job of hinting at something interesting. I think there's a kernel of something really interesting here. And this is a franchise that is begging for a better writer. Because I think if somebody had some like actual cultural critique teeth, they could do something really interesting in this world. It's just not what's happened so far. But
Well, and like the idea of like the copycats and like the folks who are inspired by Jigsaw, like
right.
that they play with that in the earlier films, right? I mean,
Yeah.
'cause-
Yeah.
but this time, to your point, like, yeah, you could go a different direction here. That, yeah, I mean, it's you're right. It's a very fair. It's a good point. Like, it's very it does feel more relevant, but
I mean, listen, I mean, it's punching up, which I appreciate. Do I think all the
yes.
punches connect? I do not.
No, no,
But
yeah.
Well,
I
it's
mean,
you bring up a
I mean-
super interesting point too, which is that first Saw movie came out in like 2003. So if you think, which actually like considering geopolitical events this week is kind of interesting and like kind of cyclical in a weird way. Like
mhm.
there are arguments to be made about that original wave of torture porn coming out of the mood of the country, sort of in post 9/11, two fresh wars. You were, coming off of the revelations of like what went down at Abu Ghraib, and you've got Guantanamo and like all this kind of shit. So like, I mean, there's been a lifetime of geopolitical and economic change that's happened since this movie has come out. So I like what you're saying, Rachel, is like this film is a kind of endless. It's not like brilliant social commentary, but
No.
it doesn't have to be,
Yeah.
right? To be pointed.
Mm-mm.
Like I think that's a super interesting point to just point out like how different the world is since that first Saw movie came out.
Mhm.
But they had a lot of options if they wanted to be brave. They could have gone a lot of different directions here because there's really no reason for our token Jigsaw in this movie to copycat Jigsaw, right? I mean, none of his philosophies were the same or anything. He just kind of tacked onto them because they're famous. He could have taken some of Jigsaw's philosophies, like with the spirals and stuff, and done his own thing, and it could have been a completely different movie, which would have been, at least been more interesting.
On
Yeah.
that, really quick on the spirals, the whirls. Is that a thing? Like, I couldn't remember the spiral. Like, anyone referencing the spirals before this movie?
I don't think so. I think they were
Okay.
just
Yeah.
Billy's face.
Oh
Um,
yeah, the little cheeks with the
yeah.
whirls on them.
Yeah.
No, it was like a design element for sure. Like but to
But it wasn't
compare
like
the
a
movie-
symbol.
with the twirly
like-
knife thing. If
Yeah,
there was
people
something
are gonna
about
like,
it.
like recognize the spiral. That's like in the there's a scene when he walks into the room. I can't. It's Samuel L. Jackson, I think, walks into the room in the one scene and the whole wall. It's like just spirals everywhere. It's like what?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't
Well,
know if
it's
it's a
funny
reference to the terrible game because like you're supposed to go towards all the spiral rooms, but
It's funny because there is a Japanese manga and maybe a movie I don't remember called Spiral by Junji Ito, which is like pretty famous as far as horror nerds go. And every time they first started talking about this movie, I just kind of assumed that's what they were going for. So then once it was finally revealed it was a Book of Saw movie, it's like, oh, that kind of sucks. But they stuck to it.
Different direction.
yeah.
All right, guys. Spiral. Would you recommend it, Rachel?
To I think I would feel more comfortable recommending this than the whole middle section of Saw.
That's fair.
I would, yeah. So I mean, if you like Saw, you should put this in your eyeballs. If you don't like Saw,
I mean, look at if you've come this far.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Why
definitely.
stop?
If you made it
Fair.
through 3D and Jigsaw, do yourself. a
If you come
favor,
this
watch
far,
this
you're
one.
basically, you're on an odyssey of the mind. You sort of owe it to yourself to continue the journey, I feel like.
Worst Vision quest ever.
right. Casey,
I'm gonna say no.
also fair.
Like
Both-
that is also the correct.
Both valid
answer.
opinions, yeah. Caitlin,
Yeah, why not?
John.
No.
Mine's qualified. Like I think, like along the lines of what Rachel's saying, like if you're a Saw person, you know who you are. Just watch it. Like you're gonna anyway if you haven't already. So just do it.
Yeah,
But
I
like,
saw people are gonna watch it whether
But-
yes or no anyway.
but I
so-
think John, right? But I think there's a certain amount of people out there who are on the periphery who are like, if they hear, hey, they reinvented this thing and it's really good. They might want to go see it. I don't know that this will like rises to that level. So you may want to.
I think there's a certain amount of people that would go and watch it just because Schnar said no.
I'll be honest. I think I would have. I think I might have
bless 'em.
enjoyed it more in the theater, just seeing it in
Yeah.
a little bit more of a spectacle kind of
Yeah.
way. I guess. Like, I also like. It was easy to get distracted, like having
Yeah.
distractions around me in this movie.
Yeah,
I think
kinda
crowd
drew this.
engagement would have been fun.
It was only like an hour and 30. I mean, this was like a tighter
It was.
90. So
You are correct, sir. All right, guys. Mixed bag from the BGH crew. There it is. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
You know, a lot of people write me and say, hey, Joe Bob Briggs, just what is monster vision? You don't need no special glasses or an insect's head, just a healthy love for slime and disrespect for the dead. We'll talk about some movies by the old double wide, and when you get that creepy feeling creeping up inside, well, then you got monster vision. It's a heck of a fright. We're tearing the heart out of Saturday night. These Monster Vision movies serve a primitive drive, 'cause watching people die can make you feel so alive. So throw away your clicker now, the flick's have begun, 'cause there's nothing you can do while fully dressed that's as fun as watching TNT beneath the bug zapper light. We're tearing the heart out of Saturday night. Tearing the heart out of Saturday night. Hey, I'm Joe Bob Briggs, and you're listening to the Bloody Good Horror Podcast.
Send feedback to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or on Twitter using hashtag AskBGH. Join Patreon to get back episodes and much more. Patreon.com/bloodygoodhorror.
And we're back. Rachel,
Yeah.
I'm so glad you could join us tonight. Thank you for
Yeah.
stopping on by. You want to tell listeners just a little bit about yourself and like Zombie Girls, where they can find you and stuff like that?
Sure. So I am the host of a few podcasts on the Zombie Girls Network. Caitlin has been a guest, and I'm hoping will be again sometime very soon because she is a goddamn delight, which you all know
It's true.
already. So there's the Zombie Girls podcast where I host with a bunch of my girlfriends. We just talk about horror through a feminist perspective to varying success. And then there's More Deadly, which focuses specifically on movies that are directed by women directors, and Stream Queens, which is basically me and a friend get drunk and talk about a horror movie you can stream on the internet. And then we have a new Nick Cage show where we're just going through the man's very varied filmography.
Oh, that's
But
great.
yeah.
There's
Not just the
lots
horror
of
movies.
lots of
I didn't
material.
know. Listen to that.
We started
interesting.
with a pilot that he was in called The Best of Times, which is on the YouTubes, and it is him and Crispin Glover's as teens, and there are dance numbers. And let me tell you, Nick Cage has some moves.
wow.
I am on board.
Love it.
Yeah,
So-
I would recommend it just for the 9 to 5 cover that he does in shirtless and overalls.
Into it. I mean, one of the most memorable horror moments of the last decade is him and his tighty whities and Mandy like freaking out. Drinking liquor.
I know.
It's good times. What's the best way for people to find that show?
Sure. Well, I
Your-
mean,
all
we're
of
on
your
all
shows.
your usual pod platforms. You can follow us on Instagram at ZG Podcasts. That's probably the best place to find us.
Cool. And then if
or-
you're searching for it, the spelling is important.
Oh yes, thank you. It's Zombie GRRLZ. It's like a nod to Riot Girls and also the fact that we started it in like 2000. Hence the zombie.
I love that. Awesome.
It's good stuff.
Oh, thanks.
I mean, this show's called Bloody Good Horror because I picked some stupid name when I was like 20 years old. So there you go.
I know. I thought it was going to be like British the first time I listened to it, and I was like,
Yeah,
nope.
right. I mean, it was actually right around the same time I started this the 2021 is actually the 20th anniversary of the original proto baby version of Bloody Good Horror that Mark and I made as a website.
Yeah.
That is more officially now more life than I have lived with no BGH.
Oh man, that is
Wow.
wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. I mean, you guys have definitely been my podcast. You didn't know this, but we've been friends for years.
Love it.
I was
I've
telling
heard
you
that
before
before.
the show. Yeah. It's weird. I mean, you guys listen to podcasts, so you know, you feel
Yes.
like you have like, it's like when you have a sex dream about someone and you've had this experience, they have no fucking idea. It's not only conversational.
And then you see him and it's weird.
Yeah. I was telling you before the show, I've been listening ever since I remember my very first episode was the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. It was when I was commuting into San Francisco every day and wanted to die, and you guys saved me through traffic. And I was always like, when I got through the backlog, I was like, fuck. Once a week, I had a great commute.
I love that. That's awesome. I mean, every once in a while, I'll run into people that are like, yeah, I've listened to the whole backlog like 5 times,
Oh man, I'll
which is
listen to
wild.
it.
I have shows that I've done that with, where I just, when I get back around, I just cue them back up from the top. I would not recommend people go back too far with our show, but I think most people
Yeah.
probably
There's
feel
a
that
I
way.
don't know about shenanigans,
Oof.
you know?
Yeah, there's a cutoff
Only
for me.
fans know about shenanigans.
Well, awesome. Thank you for that, Rachel. So Zombie Girls,
That was the one.
GRRLZ.
That's us.
Yes.
Speaking
Check
of
it out.
shenanigans, that's the one time I ever seen Eric like freak out in public when we were at Horror Hound, and he said something about shenanigans, and somebody walking by is like, "I know that voice. I listen to that show," and he's like, "Oh shit, they recognize me."
That was exciting. It was kind of cool. It was it was like 10 years ago. It was a long time ago.
Oh yeah, it was
Kate-
longer than that.
Casey, I'm ready for Twitter, sir.
You're ready for Twitter.
Yes.
All right, we have the hashtag #AskBGH. We have quite a few out there. First up, we have from Drake Dangerson. Who would you cast as the leads for a Saw Universe rom-com?
Huh.
I think it's got to be. I
head
think it's got to be
scratch.
Costa.
I was going to
it's
say, how
gotta
about
be
Costas Mandalore?
Costas Mandalore and Tobin Bell.
Yeah.
Finally back together.
When I think of
What
someone
was
with the
the
range to
wife's
pull that
name?
off, it's definitely him.
Jill Tuck. God, I hate myself
Just
right
Jill?
now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it that thing, though, where like you don't know
Nailed
it's his
it.
wife at first, and then it's revealed to be his wife?
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Because that's the thing in those, like, you couldn't ever just be who you were. It had to be revealed at the end of a movie.
All right. Next up, @Relon Films says, "Come on, guys, let's get more comedians in horror films. I'm thinking Adam Sandler in Hostel or Kevin James in Hellraiser. Who would you like to see?"
Well, Kevin James was in that Becky.
Yeah.
But you
Wait,
know
for
who's
Reference's
great
movie.
is Josh. I guess you'd consider him a comedian. Is Josh Gad in that
the-
zombie movie? What's that
Little
called?
Monsters.
Yeah,
I
he's
mean, that was basically a comedy, though.
Yeah,
He
that's
was,
true.
like,
That's true.
Well, Danny McBride, didn't he do a lot of writing for Halloween, the new Halloween?
yeah. He
Yeah.
was
I would
actually
love to
pretty
see
good
him
at it.
in anything.
Yeah,
Did
I
you
agree.
see the
Yeah.
Alien Covenant? Like he has
Oh.
one of those voices where everything sounds like a joke. He'd be, and so I kept being like,
Oh, he
wait,
is.
what? Oh no, it's just Alien.
Dude, you're
Okay.
right. He is
I
an
mean, to
Alien
be-
Covenant. I've totally forgot that.
Yeah, but to be fair, they put him in like a straw cowboy hat for that movie,
They
right? So it
did.
fits.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
It was
The
like on the
football
line.
hat. Yeah.
Well, and Rachel knows this well. We covered False Positive, the new A24 Monstrous Motherhood movie on Plug It Up, and while the movie left a lot to be desired and left some lasting images in my brain that neither of us were prepared for, I would like to see Alana Glazer, who is a comedian, do more horror.
Ah. I mean, she was great. It's not her fault. Although I
We
guess she
held
wrote
her to a high standard, but
All right, Casey, what else we got? We got a ton of
All right.
Instagram to get
Next
through
up-
too.
Next up, we have from @Erie, Arizona. This is a good question. What are you looking for when you go shopping in a Spirit of Halloween store?
I don't really do. I'm just like an apartment dweller. I have been for a long time, so I don't really stock up on like outdoor decorations or even really like, here's what I'm looking for. And this is how you know you're a spooky person. I'm looking for like spooky items, like clothing that I can wear year round. Like,
Or
Yeah.
decor for the home.
yeah, sure. Like one year I bought like sunglasses that were just skeletons and I wore them for like a
Amazing.
year and a half until they broke because they were cheap as shit, but they were amazing.
Yeah, you get in there and suddenly things get very reasonable. You're like, yes, I need a dead baby for my perch. Duh.
Of course.
I love that. Yeah, like,
us-
go ahead.
Usually we're in there a lot, so I'm usually more towards Halloween decorations because we like to go all out.
Well, now, great,
But
Casey.
then-
Casey. You have the suburban spread there, and you guys do a whole scene in your yard every year.
Right, exactly. But then, other than that, I'm going for decor because I know the clothes aren't going to fit me because I'm a big boy. But like coffee mugs with my favorite horror movies and cheesy shit on it, and magnets and stickers and stuff, I'm all there.
Casey, do you have the giant 12-foot skeleton from Home Depot? You're my only hope.
I do not yet, but I do have a pretty big Audrey 2 and a pot.
Okay.
I'll have to post a picture of that.
Yes, please.
Alrighty, next up from our buddy at Skizbot, which trap from the Saw series grosses you out the most?
So I came prepared because I follow Skylar and I adore Skylar. And I was like, I'm going to give a good answer for this one. And in the pre-show, I was looking at an article that was like the saw traps ranked. And I think we all are grossed out by the needle pit. That one's really rough. But one that I had erased from my mind is one called the pig vat, where a man is laying in some sort of basin and they're like liquefying dead pigs and like drowning him in the goo. And
These are
that's
the facts.
repulsive.
What number is that from? What?
It's Saw 3.
That's pretty
Oh,
disgusting.
early.
So Saw
Early.
3, I believe, is the only one that I have never seen because it
How
fell
did you know what was going on the rest
because
of
it
the time?
fell in between like pre this show existing. I had seen the first two, and then I kind of was like a little not in horror for like a year or two, and then we kind of picked back up with the site and the show, and then we started picking back up with 4. I think we did 4 on this show, and that's where we picked
I
it
think
up.
you might be right.
So I missed 3.
Just a shitload of canon there.
But it's super important
Yeah.
to know because a lot of 4 is flashbacks from 3 and like things that pay off from 3, and it's like a whole thing. But yeah.
I know it's the Stockholm Syndrome talking, but you really should watch it.
Well, 2, I remember like I've seen pieces of 3, and I remember 2 and 3 being decent from what I've seen.
Yeah, if this were a trilogy, this would be a pretty great franchise because that's the last one Lee Whannell wrote, and there's a
Right.
full arc that happens, and then they're like,
Yeah.
I guess we'll bring in Costas Mandalore.
Yeah, and then the other ones were written by Swift, right? Damien Swift and some other dude or something.
There's a
right?
couple.
There's
Yeah,
like
there's
a
couple
two.
different
There's a
characters.
duo or something. So there's one
Mhm.
that I always remember from one of the later sequels, and I don't know that I'd say it grossed me out the most, but it really was hard for me to watch at the time, where there was like a black box that you couldn't see in, and you had to. There's a thing you had to fill to escape the room. You had to fill this thing with enough blood to open the door, but you did that by sticking your hands inside of this box that had like spinning saws blades in it. So you had to basically jack up your hands and bleed into this thing enough to like release the trap, which seemed just crazy to me.
For me, I think it's the rack from the third movie where the guy's just like twisting all of his limbs. Do you remember this?
I don't.
Yeah. No, you missed 3
That's
because
true.
you're not a true fan. Um, or the voice activated like fish hook thing from I think it's 6, where the needles are coming closer to her neck, and then but there's a key down her throat on a line of his hooks that she has to pull out. That one's pretty upsetting. Also very advanced.
Yeah, they use science for that one.
Well, we'll get into the laser collars if we ever talk about Jigsaw.
As I
Oh,
proved earlier, Chester Bennington super glued to a car seat obviously stuck with me.
Yeah.
All right, next up we have from Anna Claire says, I didn't realize things were getting pushed out again. In general, I'm so bummed and scared about the COVID numbers. Just want everyone to stay safe and spooky. But how do you feel about, with all the new news coming out, heading back to the theaters?
We have kind of put brakes on it a little bit here at the show, just understanding people might not be super comfortable. I think like I'm going to see Halloween in the theater. Like I am vaccinated. Like everybody's gonna be masked up. Like I'm not. Well, I don't know if theaters are still masking. Are they? That's a
Depends what
great
state you live
question
in.
because I've been to 3 movies, but they were all right in that span when all the mask mandates went away. So like I
Yeah.
actually am not sure now what theaters are doing. That's a really good question. But I feel in general I'm feeling like bummed that stuff's rolling back, but I feel a lot more safe because myself and like most of my people are vaccinated, so I'm feeling better. It's not great. I wouldn't say, John.
No,
It's
it's
not great.
terrible.
No, it's
But yeah.
terrible.
It's real bad.
All right, next up from a longtime friend of Bloody Good Horror at Mary Was It Scary. We haven't heard from her for too long. She says, "Hello, Bloody Good Horror. Important is spelled Bludhy. If you had to go through one of the saw traps, which one would you choose and would you survive?"
Just FYI, bloody spelled Bludhy is from, there's a YouTube video that Mary and I like where this little kid has a cut
Blood.
and he's like, blood.
yeah.
And so we spell blood like with an H at the end, and blood is how we pronounce it. So
It's a pretty strong inside BGH Slack joke too. So
I couldn't do. I'm not going to do well in any of these. Like I can't.
yeah,
Preferably
Which
one with
one's
a
over the quickest?
yes.
The one.
Exactly. Preferably one with a short timer because I'm not going to fucking do it. So just kill me. Like just let's get it over with.
Eric said
shotgun
that
wheel.
Eric gets hit by the train. Like,
And gets his tongue ripped out at the same time. He got both. That's the thing. He got
No.
both things. That's why that one's so messed up. Like it wasn't one or the other.
It was pretty quick though. Like the tongue came out, then it's
yeah.
it's quick.
Honestly, needles don't phase me so much. Like when I'm getting a shot and stuff. So I gotta think my best shot is the needle pit. In my panic, I would block out the gross infection possibilities of
I was gonna
everything
say,
going on.
Casey, they were dirty.
Oh, I know they were dirty, but yeah, I think in the panic I could block that out.
I mean, the OG, like if you had to do it, like saw your own handoff situation. Well, like there was that, what was the 127 hours, the like hiker who had to like cut off his own, I think, leg with like a pocket knife. I mean, I don't know. It seems like the saw, the OG original saw trap is like kind of easy from there, you know? So.
Yeah, but how long would you last before you figured you're just being lazy and didn't want to cut off your hand and waiting for to prove Jigsaw's point? There'd be a war there, I think, for me that I may outlast him.
I definitely would take a couple naps. I mean,
yeah. All right, last tweet from @FinalGirlScout. Hi, all you pretty people. If you had to escape from a Rube Goldbergian Saw-esque trap that is made only of sex toys, what sexy toy would you choose to be ensnared by? Pocketing, perhaps?
No comment.
I don't know enough sex toys. I think it's going to be
Caitlin, let's hear more.
Oh, sweet innocent John. I love you.
What was the one? The Vajankle?
The
Is that what-
Vajankle.
Yeah, Jekyll's the one she referenced.
John, that's not a toy. That's a horror device.
Yeah, I mean,
So says you, Eric.
yeah.
Rachel, you
Rachel,
have a
we'll
I think I
catch you
got
up.
it. I think I figured
Rachel,
it out.
you have a look on your
Catch you
face
up there.
like
I'm
you're
gonna have a
Don't
little
worry.
bit of a journey.
you have a look on your face like you're gonna ask me what this is, and I'm gonna ask you to please not, because I don't want to have to say it again.
That was a dark time. That was a dark episode. We
Go ahead, Caitlin. What you got?
Well, I don't know why I'm being called on. Is it because I have the vagina podcast? I don't know. I just is like blacking out an option because I feel like I would just be like opt out and like.
I think
thanks.
I think the answer is congratulations. You've embarrassed us all, and none of us have a good answer. We're all blushing. She's good at that. Okay. Let's see. Is that it, Casey, on Twitter?
That is it.
Love it. We got so many Instagram questions this week. Oh, before we do that, John, housekeeping. We've had a bunch of questions. With Mr. Joe leaving, since he obviously was always the champion of the BGH 5K, people have been asking. We are going to do it. I don't remember what date it was, John, so we should figure that out. October.
We can figure it out. It may end up being slightly modified from the date we originally said. We could also go back and listen to the podcast probably and figure
But if you're
out.
training, keep training.
Zero record of this.
We probably are. We might be able to work on a situation like for medals for winners, but we're probably not going to do medals for like everyone. But we really love the event. We love being able to share everybody's posts on social media and in Slack and stuff. So like we want to, we'd really like to do it. So we're gonna do it this year, John. And you know what? I will pledge to walk it this year.
I'm gonna be running either way, so you know.
Yeah, I know you're athletic. We get
Why
it.
the
We
hell
get
not?
it, John.
I'm gonna send so much moral support.
We get it,
We're gonna
John.
feel it.
Thinking of you so hard.
John, you have the calves of a Greek god. Okay, we understand. Yeah, so that we'll get some info up soon, so that there's like a landing place for that stuff. First question on Instagram: do you guys get down with Lee Mac's Spooky Town?
Oh, is those like the little houses like where people do Christmas ones?
Yeah. So I looked it up, but this is a specific kind that is sold at
Michael's.
Is it Hold on, let me look though. Yeah, okay, they're at Michael's, but it's like its own brand. This shit is so expensive. I want to meet the person who buys a lot of this shit. Be like, what kind of life are you living, bro? Like, let me in on this action.
Also, what kind of like tablescape do you have where you can put all them out? You know?
Right. I mean,
It's
it's a
called Lee Max.
Leemax, Leemax, one word is the name of the brand. They also make Christmas Town stuff. From what I saw.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
Caitlin,
it's
to
the
your
same
point,
company.
like it's a lifestyle. You know, it's
I
not.
did
just a thing you do casually.
last Halloween. I did. You know how at Christmas you get the little ceramic trees and it has the little like glass or plastic bulbs and you plug it in and it lights up. I did get the black tree with like the orange and white and purple bulbs and sent that to a cousin of mine because we're fond of the ceramic tree.
I love it.
Yeah.
Also a lifestyle.
Let's
Can I
see.
make that my sex toy answer?
Dangerous.
Is dubstep still a
You do
thing?
you.
Is dubstep still a thing, John?
Dubstep?
I googled it. Turns out it's coming back. So good news.
I mean, I would have said it didn't go away. I'm
did.
sure there were people for
Here-
whom it was still alive. Let's put it that way.
here's the thing:
Was
that
Spiral
first,
the
that first,
horseman?
that first stuff started dropping in like 2011, John. So it's actually like pretty, in pop
Yeah.
culture terms, is pretty ancient at this point.
It's ready
Um,
for a revival.
Pop quiz: how many bees will the new Candyman have?
Yeah, I mean,
1 million.
Do we think
A
it's
lot
going to
of
be
bees.
way over the top, or you think it'll be like a couple of bees?
well, the real question is,
Because I don't remember seeing bees in the trailer. Are there bees in the trailer?
oh, there's definitely
There's honeycomb in the marketing materials.
Yeah,
so-
that's true.
the real question is, will the actor, I can't remember who's playing, or well, they haven't, I guess, revealed. Well, whatever. Will he have the same bee sting related payout
clause.
in his contract
Yeah.
as Tony Todd did?
No, because they have
I-
CGI
I-
now.
Yeah, I'm assuming they're 100% CGI bees because that was the other question. Is like, will they even use real bees? But probably not.
I could do with like a swarm, like when people have come out and it's like they're wearing a suit of bees. I would appreciate that.
A suit of bees. I like it.
Suit of bees.
suit.
Next up. Will you cover Christopher Pike when the Midnight Society comes out on Netflix? Is that happening?
Yeah. Mike
Yeah.
Flanagan, I think.
Oh, really? He's
Oh.
doing that one
Oh.
too? John,
Yeah.
you were the one, John, that was into Christopher Pike, right? You and I know Elizabeth
I mean,
said
I
she would
read
wa-
some of the Christopher Pike books. Yes.
Yeah. I think that was one of the ones Elizabeth was into too. Were you also, Rachel, into the Christopher Pike?
I have not read any of them. I mean,
Oh.
I've seen the.
You
Sort of.
sounded for a second there like you were familiar.
Well, I'm very pro Flanagan, so
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude,
that's the connection for me.
I
But I
celebrate
mean,
him.
let
I
that
saw
dude
the
do whatever
plot
he wants.
synopsis and it's like hospice kids, and I was like, oh, twist.
Um, next up, will you be doing cameos? I don't know, John. What do you think? Think I should get in the game?
I mean, yeah, I will not be. It would be a very high price. for
I
the
could
game.
tell you this: my cameos would be more loving and attentive, and less negging in my cameos. So, if
I
that's
have a
the-
feeling yours would be a little shorter, Eric. I feel like you would
Yeah.
you would say it and then you'd be like,
A little more succinct. Yeah, I think so. If that's what you're looking for, hit me up. Maybe we'll get on there. It took Joe a long time to get on. Like Joe campaigned the Cameo people to he had to email and wait like months and months for them to approve it. But we'll see.
Really?
Yeah, it's because
I
it's
mean,
like
this
you got to
was
be
a little
verified.
while
It's like anything else.
It's like the ray of, I don't know, whatever.
I gotta know, and I'll. This was asked to me specifically, but I'll turn it to the group here. Best like underrated found footage movies. Like, what's a good found footage movie like that's a little under the radar if you have one?
I'm gonna throw out Hell House because it's easy, one, and two. If you don't have Shudder, you probably don't know about it, and
Yeah.
who other than people like us are gonna know about Shudder?
Oh my God, Caitlin and I went on an odyssey with these movies on Amazon Prime called Bad
Yeah.
Ben.
Batman.
Oh
Bad
my
Ben.
Holy shit!
There's like 10 of them, and
It's-
Eric was like live texting me his watching, and I was like, "This is the best."
They are
What is it?
they are the worst things ever made. They're like dollar store found footage movies where the star is just like this real schlubby middle-aged dude, like not even middle-aged, he's like an old dude
It's
basically.
pretty much me.
And like
He's like, "You cut it out, Ghost."
like in the
It's like
first
very
one he's trying to
Midwestern.
flip a house, yet he's got some weird accent that might be a Philly accent or might be like Jersey or something. But they're so awful, but I cannot like okay. I have to put my water aside. This is really important.
I really want to do it for the show, and
Here's
Eric
what
was
it-
like, "No, we will lose listeners."
Oh, no, I might be into that now. So here's the thing. It is so special nowadays when I can find something that I genuinely don't know if these are supposed to be good or bad. Like, I can't tell you if it's intentional camp, and that makes it delicious. Like, I could not get enough of this movie. John, there are 7 of these movies, and they are all on Prime.
Well, you can get anything on Prime.
There's
I'm
a
pretty sure. It's not,
prequel.
like, hard.
There's like multiple sequels. It is unreal how wild they are. So awful.
One of them is like an Uber driver, right?
I
It's
haven't
like
seen that
haunted
one.
Uber driver.
Yes.
Yeah, and one is like pandemic, ghost hunting.
It's like Bad Ben, Badder Ben. They have the best worst titles too. It's
Yeah.
just oh my gosh.
So I haven't heard either one of you. I've seen parts of all of the Bad Ben movies because my wife Colleen is a huge fan. She found them
I
out
love
there,
that.
loves found footage, and has watched them all. I haven't seen I heard the most important question from either of you. What's the purpose of the phone on the outside of the front door?
Yeah, there's a phone on the outside of the house.
On the front porch?
Here's the deal too. Kayla and I were talking like part of the dude's vibe that's so amazing because he's in like the entire first movie is almost just him.
Yeah.
And what's so funny about it is he has this it's like he's not really scared of the ghost. He's like he's put out.
He's annoyed. He's like,
annoyed by
"Get
the
on
ghost.
out of here while I flip this house."
He's like, I can't believe you did it again. And it's just like,
He's
oh
like,
my
"Don't
gosh.
move my blanket, Ben."
That's a really good impression, dude.
My impressions tonight are really important.
But it
for this
is
show.
like I would love
are,
for
yeah,
people who
on fire.
enjoy, like I think when the internet came around, this is exactly what it is. When the internet came around, we all enjoyed this journey of discovery where all the bad shit from like the 80s and 90s, just the stuff that was so weird and corny, you couldn't believe it existed. Like it started resurfacing, but then we like we
It was overexposed, like-
digested all of that,
Yeah,
overexposed it, and now it's like nothing can surprise you anymore. This surprised me, and that's why it was so incredible to me.
Well, you guys also forget though, Bad Ben is the ghost haunting the house, and at some point in those 10 movies, the Jersey Devil becomes part of the story.
Oh, I didn't get that far. Yeah. And my problem is I like the first one so much. I tried to go too hard on the sequels right away. And it's like, you need a palette chaser or something. You can't just
Critical
marathon.
distance is important for the
Yes.
Bad Ben.
I'm with Kaylin though. I actually think it'd be really funny to do an episode on the first one at least.
Do it.
I don't know if I'm getting.
See,
through
here's
this,
the
but go
problem though,
ahead.
is John, if Kayla and I were really into it, I know you would do it for us. I don't think Joe would have done. Like, I wouldn't have even.
No.
I wouldn't have even brought it up. Love it. Let's put it on the
Honestly,
docket.
though, we ever do a Bad Ben episode, I will skip out that week, and you guys can have Colleen sit in my place. She knows all of them. She's seen them. She'll be perfect for you.
Besides the main tentpole horror movies coming out, what smaller ones are you excited for?
I have the hardest time keeping up with stuff because I'm not like my keeping up is usually
I had
in
to
the
Google
theater
it.
watching a trailer, and so, like or the trailers that are coming, before the stuff we're seeing. So it is like I'm not on Twitter as we've discussed, so I just like I'm not exposed to like what's coming. I don't know. I haven't solved this problem.
My answer was Antlers.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that was
Yeah,
supposed
yeah,
to be
yeah.
last year. That was like a big one for last year.
That's been like a couple of years, hasn't it? Wasn't even before. I know it was supposed to come out there, but didn't it exist before that?
Yeah,
too?
yeah. I mean, they had been talking about it, but yeah, that's supposed to be pretty good.
And the one with the director of Raw, Julia Ducournau,
Oh.
her new movie looks
Titan.
very
Is that how do you how are you
Titan.
guys saying it?
Titan.
Titan.
Titan. I don't know. It's something
Titan.
French.
I assume you have to say French and stuff. But yeah, that movie, whatever it is, because I don't want to know. It's gonna be crazy.
Good gluten.
It's wild.
I was gonna answer.
You've seen it? You haven't
No,
seen
no,
it?
no, no. I like I said, I saw a spoiler that I was like, I'm gonna need to see that with my eyeballs.
Good gluten-free recipes. John, what do you got for that?
Come on.
I would say if anybody has them for our buddy Chris here, let me know. I told him to DM
I mean, I
me.
can ask Suzanne. She uses oh god, I'm gonna forget what it's called. There's like a chef who has like a website and she bought all the cookbooks, and a lot of the recipes end up being gluten free.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on if you're trying to recreate stuff that has gluten in it, or if you're trying to do more like a paleo thing where you're doing more like meat and fresh veggies and stuff. Like, they listen. I'll say this:
Define dish is the name of the website.
the advancements in gluten-free technology have come very, very far. And if you're looking for, if you're cool with like a straight up flour amalgam, King Arthur makes a really, really good 1-to-1 gluten-free flour for like baking stuff. So there you go. I'd love to answer more. I've been researching this topic for years, John. I just want to share this information with people. But I wasn't going to type that on our question, so I told him to DM me. What horror movies do you think of immediately when you think of good sound design?
John Carpenter films, Ridley Scott films.
I said the Blair Witch Project because that movie's like all sound design.
Mhm. I feel like The Witch has good
Yep.
sound design.
Oh yeah.
Somebody sent that in. Yeah, that's a good one.
I mean, like the Ari Aster movies.
I mean,
Oh yeah, Hereditary.
A Quiet Place, fantastic use of sound. In that
Yes.
first one especially. Caitlin, this one's for you, buddy. Did BGH cover Mom and Dad? It was great to hear it. Unplug It Up.
Oh,
we did cover it.
100 years ago, we covered it. Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't that long, but yeah. Sure.
it's 100
Yeah, this-
years. Caitlin, Selma Blair liked your tweet about Plug It Up.
she did. So this week's episode that was released on Plug It Up was on Mom and Dad, and my brother was the guest because the movie's called Mom and Dad, and we got to speculate like our chances against fighting our parents. It was a lot of fun, and Selma Blair liked the Instagram post, and I have been telling everyone because I'm so excited that she liked the post.
That's amazing.
Love it. Yeah, that's really cool. I love Selma Blair. She's cool. Shudder is apparently working on a Behind the Monsters docu-series that's like about, they're going to do series of movie, like slashers style. That's kind of cool.
I thought it was going to be behind that, like the show Monsters.
No.
Not great.
John, you told me I didn't give you a warning last week. This is the last Instagram question. So
Oh,
I want you
all
to
right.
start winding yourself down
All right.
for the evening, okay? This is a really great one to end on. Existential dread ruined my spooky season last year. Is it okay to allow myself to enjoy Halloween this year?
Yes.
I would say it's not only okay, but it is essential
Yeah.
Yep.
Heard.
for all of us.
We
And
actually had this conversation
Listen.
with some family over our vacation, and they were like, "Oh yeah, but like no one's gonna do Halloween because of like COVID." I was like, "Motherfucker, we did Halloween like crazy
So-
last year. I don't know what you're like. It's outside.
I did-
Like, what you're,
We,
like, people aren't going to trick or treat. Like it was like kids
I
were going
think,
crazy.
I
in
want to
the
say,
neighborhood,
I'm
so.
trying to remember like when we all started masking up. Was it after October? Like,
No,
Yeah,
we
it was
because
before.
we took masks like as adults with us,
Yeah.
and if we got close to people, we put them on. But like the kids, I mean,
I
there were
took-
people in our neighborhood who did. Have you guys seen candy slides?
The tube.
So
Yeah.
there was like tubes. There was a couple slides. I mean,
I
so,
saw
like,
people
there was
too
stuff
with like
that, but-
tables set up outside, so you didn't have to like come up to their door and stuff, which is a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, we
So-
did candy bags in the table route, and we just restocked it, and we went through everything though. Still,
I took the kids out on like basically in a wagon, like a walk, and we kind of just looked at decorations, but we didn't do any candy. I would say this year, like a lot more people, well, where I live especially, are vaccinated, and like there's gonna, everybody can mask up. We'll put masks on the kids. Like I think I'm definitely gonna trick or treat with them this year. I think it'll be
Eric,
cool.
how old is Lily? She's like 5, right?
6, no 5. Yeah.
Oh my god. My 5-year-old, if you told her she couldn't trick or treat, would stab
Oh.
you. It'd be I'd be
Riot.
murdered in sleep.
John, my kids listen to me.
Oh, they listen, but it's still like they would wait till I was asleep and then they'd stab me. So
Saw
keeping her
Trap
from pain,
Daddy.
Yes.
I mean,
But no, I think you gotta enjoy the things you enjoy. I think it's imperative that we all find joy in our lives right now. That's my answer to that question. Speaking of joy, John, this show brings me joy, and it is now over. So
Beautiful.
until next week.
segue.
Rachel,
You do it.
thank you.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
This has
thank
been
you.
so fun.
Thank you for joining us. If you want to hear more of Rachel, you can Google the Zombie Girls podcast, GRRLZ. You can find it in your pod thingies. What are you guys on social again?
ZG podcasts plural.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And there's definitely going to be future appearances by the Zombie Girls and Rachel on BGH. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I didn't blow it.
We do not, I don't think we've discussed what we're doing next week, but keep an eye out. Bloody Good Horror on Instagram, BG Horror on Twitter. And also patreon.com/Bloody Good Horror. And you can see a weekly live stream of this show, as well as get all our back episodes, John. You could go back and listen to episodes, John, before any of us knew what COVID was.
Those
my God.
glorious days. Yep. Okay.
Life before being a mole person.
I like
yeah,
that.
indeed.
That's going to do it for another episode of BGH. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll talk to you next week.